going live and you are live.
We will start again. Hello, my hori mai. Welcome to the ordinary meeting of council this morning. I don't believe there's any apologies this morning. Are there any declarations of interest? I've not been made aware of any. So we'll go item 4, which is public forum, petitions and deputations. And this morning we have Jason Herrick, who has 5 minutes to speak and 5 minutes for questions. Welcome. Come forward, Jason. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Nicol and councillors for having me here today. I'm appearing here today because we've got an issue, and a serious issue at that. And I think it's about time someone laid it out plain and simple without sugarcoating it. Not for the sake of having a moan or a grizzle, but for the genuine hope that we might be able to find a constructive solution for our community. Unfortunately, the council and the processes and the consultations that have been totally captured by extreme anti-farming activist groups like Fish and Game and Forest and Bird. But here's the issue. Nobody in our community has elected those groups to govern our region. We've elected you guys, councillors, to do that. By allowing the likes of Fish and Game to have a disproportionate influence over the regional rules and regulations, you're completely abdicating your responsibility and totally failing Southland. These groups were elected by nobody, are accountable to nobody, represent nobody, and frankly contribute bugger all to our local regional economy. But you're sitting back and allowing them to tie our farmers up in red tape, bog us down in litigation, and make almost impossible to do anything productive on our land. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our farming in Southland and the farming families who have to live with all this nonsense. Farming contributes almost a quarter of the region's GDP and creates employment for almost 1 for every 10 Southlanders. The economic activity and the export dollars our farmers earn flows right through the entire Southland economy several times over. Many of these families have been here for generations, still living on the road that their last name or their street sign. Others are newer, but came here chasing a better life for their families and the economic opportunities farming in Southland can provide. These families are the bedrock of our rural communities. The sports coaches, volunteer firefighters, the glue that keeps Southland together. The income from our milk and meat doesn't just sit in our pockets, it spends with our local trades like sparkies, builders, plumbers and concreters. We're out there shopping in the local community like with butchers and bakers, candlestick makers if you want to go there. And let's not forget the entire farming support industry, the truckies, the vets, the shearers, the meat workers, the dairy processors, and let's be honest, the Fairview Council compliance officers. Those are the people that you are currently failing as you pander to the extreme activist groups that really nothing more than a noisy minority.
No. Order. You've probably got a couple more minutes, then we'll move to questions.
Yep. It's also affecting staff here within this building. These are the same groups that are preventing from doing their jobs. It's disappointing to hear continuously from farmers out there on issues that are coming out of this building because of these groups influencing staff at a certain level. It's also disappointing to hear from our policy team in Wellington, they get more phone calls from within this council building than what I do. We've had no dialogue since certain people or certain staff have left from this council building. And it is disappointing from a farmer point of view that a farmer-led organisation like Federated Farmers isn't involved in discussions that affect farmers on a daily basis. It would be more pertinent going forward if we are included in a lot of these conversations to help put these policies and legislations that are practical, workable, sensible in place. Another thing that I'd like to touch on, being elected members of this local community, it would be pertinent to say that your voices are heard often around the district. And when you have something to say about certain individuals that you disagree with, be careful who you're sitting next to, because those messages do come back to us.
It probably goes both ways, Jason. I've never turned out an invitation to come and speak to you. On the gravel issue, there's a letter I'll probably sign off today to the TAs, which will explain that under our new water and land plan, it is a permanent activity to remove gravel in certain conditions under bridges. That will take out a lot of cost. It'll be good for the resilience of our roading network, and it's a great place to start. But I've got Morris, I've got Robert, and then I've got Peter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Jason, thank you. The two organisations that you've taken aim at, you say are preventing Southland farmers from being productive. Are you meaning that Southland farmers are not productive?
I will point out Rule 24, Section 70 as a case in point here, okay, where it's come out of the court decision that would have enabled, the result would have been all farmers in Southland would have needed resource consent. And everybody knows that in here, right? So that's the ongoing issue, and I'm dealing with the current one, which is in the Water and Land Plan, which is Rule 78, which I'm not going to get into detail because it's before the court here, but same outcome. Okay, it is continuously. We're not listening to history. We're not implementing things going forward that are going to fix these issues. We keep beating the same drum here, and the same issues just keep poking up.
My question is, do you believe that Southland farmers are not productive, which is what you've implied?
I believe that the production is being affected.
Thank you.
Running out of time, Peter.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I can see you're pretty wound up, and it's been a discussion that's been going around this province for some time, led by you and those that are principally in fishing farmers, and I'm pretty fired up. I get some of your things and what you're saying. I'm really concerned about the welfare of people out there, fishermen, of a boil over, some sort of incident. Now, it's okay with a fisherman with a fishing rod. I'm worried about a duck shooter with a gun and some sort of incident take place because people were charged up. Have we got, and you've been quoted of saying, and I'm going to read this quote back to you out of the Farmers Weekly, if you've got mates coming down for duck shooting this season, tell them they're only welcome in the Mai opening day if they've supported the board club. My question to you, what gives you the right to say who's welcome in this province and who isn't? Because this is a day that's cherished by many. So I'm concerned about lifting that temperature up, ramping it up, and something does happen.
We're running out of time.
Yeah, so, I hear your frustrations here, Peter. I really do, but I get it from the other side as well. All right, I get it from the farmers every day. I get it from the locals.
Be mindful of that. This discussion.
We're not dealing in a debate.
So I'm addressing the council today on an issue, all right, that is on the forefront of most farmers' minds out there. Not just farmers, also fishermen themselves, and leading into duck shooting. It is an absolute ritual. It should have its own public holiday. All right, no two ways about that here in Southland. It is a big deal. No two ways about that. This is all about putting pressure. Okay, putting pressure and pushback on a situation that has arisen because of these ongoing issues that is happening here within the council on all of these regulations coming at us, and we're allowing it to happen continuously. It's done it in the past. Okay, there's a whole history here, councillor, a whole history. All right, and it's boiled up to this point, and now it's got to the point where we just had enough. We can't sit back and sit on our laurels anymore and try and find solutions behind back doors, right? Because nobody's listening to us.
I can
No,
see
I'm
the
gonna-
way
I'm
you
gonna
feel,
cut this
but
off
just
here
be
now.
mindful of that letter of them.
We've had the time, but look, we will continue to work for the people of Southland, and it would be really great to get all the parties working together for the betterment of Southland and the betterment of our environment. From my position, we need to keep, we'll keep listening to everybody, and we want the outcome that's best for Southland. So thanks for coming in this morning, Jason.
Thank you, Nicole. It's a pity I didn't have more time because there's a lot more to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Jason.
There was accusations about staff and not doing things. How are we going to address those matters, given that Rule 24 and Section 70 was our action? Do we address that in another part of the meeting?
Maybe we'll address that in another part of the meeting. We need to move on.
Thank you.
Natural justice issues here.
Yes. Okay, we will move to the confirmation of minutes, starting on page 6, which was the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council of the 4th of February. Somebody. Moved by Lawrence, seconded by Phil. Any alterations or amendments? I'm not hearing any. I will put the resolution. Everyone will say aye.
Aye.
All carried. And we'll move to the minutes of the South and Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. So we're adopting the resolutions for that meeting.
The 31 January month.
This is the 31st of
I'll
January.
move that, Chairman.
And rules also there, I have to second it. Any discussion? I will put the resolution. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Right, the minutes of the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting of the 24th of February. Linda, would you like to comment on?
Thanks, Chairman. Just a couple of things. Just wanted to draw your attention to 9.1 of those minutes, and highlight the fact that there were 7 submissions to various bills and plans put forward by staff with input from the councillors at varying methods. So firstly, thanks to the councillors for contributing, and most importantly, thanks to staff for getting so much work done in that space. It's really important, and it's shouldn't be taken lightly. And the other thing is 9.3, which was the freshwater science package, which I have subsequently checked out, and it looks really good on the website. So if you haven't been there yet, have a look. Otherwise, I would move that recommendation. Thanks, Chairman.
Moved by Lyndall, seconded for that. Seconded by Jeremy. Any further discussion? I will put the resolution. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Move to the minutes of the regulatory meeting, and also on the 24th of February.
I'll move confirmation of that, Chairman.
Moved by Neville, seconded by Jeremy. Any further comments? I'll put the resolution. All in favour will say aye. So carried. Right, we'll move to the minutes of the investment committee of the 25th. Eric, would you like to make any?
Oh, I'm happy to move. There are 2 items on the agenda, 10.6 and 12, which are actions coming out of this, and I expect a more fulsome discussion, if any, at that point. So just happy to move.
I'll second those, Chairman.
Thank you, Eric. Moved and seconded by Lyndall. Resolution, all in favour will say aye. Right, we'll move to the minutes of the Finance and Performance Committee meeting of Wednesday the 26th. Morris, would you like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, yes, a couple of matters. I notice on question number 7, questions, we asked the staff to confirm the actual cost incurred by council on road transport matters. I wonder if that's been attended to. I'm not sure.
Yes, it has.
Very good. Thank you.
I can pass that on. I can pass it on. Yes, it has.
And 9.2, the business plan update. This is in a new format, and was very good, easy to see where things are going in the council, and whether we are achieving what we say we're going to achieve. And I just note that was moved by Councillor Gibson, that it be approved. So that's nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded for that resolution. Any further discussion? I will put the resolution. All in favour will say aye. Aye. Right, we'll move to the minutes of the Regional Services Committee meeting. Peter, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. I'll move, then, but I'll just make a genuine comment. The meeting is pretty well involved. There's lots of items, and the items seem to be getting larger and larger, more complex as we move into flood mitigation and in the works around the region. We had an afternoon start, did the 2 hours, but it went well after that. And you might say, question some of my chairing skills by doing that, but it's important that those items are taken in and discussed. I'm just saying to the council, it's something to consider for next term about making this committee a whole of council committee with our focus back to the catchments and the work that goes on. I'm concerned that there's quite a lot of councillors not on the committee that is not seeing this critical work that's being done in the information that runs through this committee. So that's just something for the future. But I have moved and you can find a seconder for that.
Seconded by Paul. I'll put the resolution. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Right, we will move to notification of ordinary items of business. Everybody this morning. Okay, item 8 is questions. We have question from Councillor McDonald and from Councillor Pemberton. We have somebody who's responding.
General Manager, Integrated Kitchen Management is answering council.
Welcome, Lucy.
Perhaps I could just speak to the question.
Or they're on the agenda and we've got a reasonably tight time frame.
That's right, it's pretty self-explanatory.
What's that?
Made as clear as you could.
Morning, Council, and through you, Chair. Thank you for your questions, Councillor McDonald. I'm proposing to go through them one by one. So if you need more clarification on what's been done, just let me know. So the first question around the gravel working group and its current status. So the group was set up last year to jointly explore problems and possible solutions for a wide range of issues relating to gravel management. It was set up with a clear purpose in terms of working through those things. So that's its current status. The last meeting was December in the last year, and there isn't another meeting planned at this stage. The members of that group include 2 of our catchment liaison committee chairs, Southern District Council, ourselves, Fish and Game, DOC, and representatives from iwi. All of the participants are actively awaiting the next steps. So the major output from the working group was a number of case studies. Those have been compiled and are ready to be presented to council in the workshop that we're hoping to schedule very soon. And once we have done that and council have given us some additional direction, the group are eagerly awaiting your directions and where to next. And so that they are definitely sort of actively engaged still. So that answers the second question. The next question down too, in terms of those any further meetings. So there are intentions to have further meetings with yourself very soon, but not with the group at this stage. So those agreed outputs, the case study outputs, as I said, they'll form a recommendation to yourselves that we can work through at the workshop, and outlines a kind of multi-pronged approach to the multitude of issues and opportunities that exist for gravel management improvement. Included in that, the chairman's comments previously about some quick wins with regards to what's already able to be done under our permitted activity rule in the proposed Southern Rural Land Plan, but making sure moving forward we've got medium and longer term expectation clarity, about areas of concern across the region, and that we have clear terms and conditions for consent processes moving forwards. So all of those have been moving in the background. The code of practice question, we have an operational team code of practice that's been in place since about 2021. It's due to be reviewed and updated, so that's another item for us to be discussing with yourselves in the next couple of months. And as I say, that final question there around when will the work be completed, once we've briefed you and you've provided the staff with further directions about where you'd like us to put our energy on this matter moving forward, we'll be able to take further actions out in the community and to brief everybody outside of the building as well as in the meetings.
Thanks, Lucy. Quite pressed for time. I think she's answered the questions. We might have another one next time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Best speeches ever, Pete.
That's 2 words. Was
We do that a bit more often.
So who's answering question 2?
I'm just concerned.
Good morning, councillors. We've got a team approach to the answers for the second set of questions. So Sam, you're going to start with the farm fees and what's been happening in the community before I talk about the legislative part of that.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel.
Through you, Chair, we've got a lot of work underway in terms of farm plans. We have certifiers who are now qualified, capable, ready to go. We are now looking at another tranche. As we talked about in the workshop a couple of weeks ago, we're very mindful that there could be a big surge of farm plans requiring certification as we come to the end of that deadline. So we're making sure that we've got sufficient provision for that. We sent the letter to all landowners in December. We held a stakeholder workshop, which I know 3 of our councillors attended and one was unable to attend. And that was a very productive few hours, and we got some very good feedback regarding that. We've assigned additional staff to give us more resource in that area as well. So we should no longer be struggling for resource there. So we put somebody in there on a secondment. There's other resourcing solutions we've got coming up in the next few weeks. And we've got a workshop for certifiers being organised as well. So there's a lot of stuff happening out there. And in the meantime, the land sustainability team are out there talking to farmers and encouraging them and getting them on that journey. So over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Sam. In terms of what's happening at a national level, you'll be aware that central government proposed some changes to Part 9A of the RMA late last year. So that's the section that mandates the preparation of certification and audit of freshwater farm plans. And you'll recall we made a submission on that particular bill and it's been tracking through the select committee process. And what those changes were seeking to do was to enable industry organisations to deliver certification and auditing requirements. In the government's 90-day plan for the first quarter of this year, they advised that cabinet decisions on system design for improved and simplified freshwater farm plans would be coming through by the 31st of March, so clearly that's not too far away. And our understanding is that once that or those decisions come through, the drafting of the regs will take place. So still waiting for regulations to come through. So unless there are questions on the farm plans, I could turn now to the next matter. I want to tell you farm plans first.
One question, we're under a bit of pressure here this morning. You've got a question?
This is really important that we have this full process. So are we, and this is to you, Sam, are we going to roll out plans this term?
Yes, we are.
The community, we committed, this council is committed to that.
Yep. And as we went through with you a couple of weeks ago,
yes,
training is running.
I'm just concerned any political questions coming out of that rolling up close to an election, that we may make a decision to defer, and I hope we don't. But that's for me, so thank you.
Okay, next question.
So the next question was around the reference period and where council's direction is on this. So just to take you back to September last year, where you made a number of decisions in the freshwater space, and one of those was around messaging, and we did put messaging out last year trying to address the concerns around the reference period and to provide some certainty to people. But the other part was changes to the Southland Water and Land Plan to deal with this, to provide a policy to encourage people to make nutrient reductions now. So next week's Strategy and Policy Committee meeting has an item on Plan Change 2025 and includes the things that were set out in September, and you'll be asked to make a decision next week on whether to proceed with that plan change this year or not and confirm the scope. So that's coming through to Strategy and Policy next week.
Thanks, Rachel. Steve Street.
Thank you, Chair. So on the Stead Street pump station, again, just the same approach as I took before. Who's operating the pump station currently? So there's an element of the operations of the pump station that we are overseeing, my team are overseeing, and there's also elements that are still being managed by the contractors. So we're still in commissioning phase. We're in that first year. Warranties will still exist within that, and so any niggles or anything that we're experiencing is being picked up through a blend of my staff and our contractors. We are looking at options beyond the first year already. We've started that process, started before Christmas, and as part of that, we included a conversation about the generator. So it wasn't budgeted as part of the original scope of the project, obviously, but we've had a number of conversations from a contingency perspective with the airport and also with EMS, Emergency Management Southland, so that when, if and when we need one, how we would get one. It's obviously a critical piece of infrastructure. So from a lifelines preservation perspective, those conversations have been advancing in the background. And regarding the decommissioning, the question there was around having a report on the performance. So yeah, happy to bring a more detailed report back to council about how it's going and any other matters that are State Street related. Thank you.
Jeremy.
Just a quick question, not quite go back to Rachel, sorry, as I was thinking there. And I know Councillor Lundo has asked about reference periods, and I would too, that we have a session, we've got completely different views what a reference period is actually for. And so I would suggest that we're going in strategy and policy talking about plan change. So we need to actually be very clear what a reference period means. And because we have discussed this and we're completely different what it is. So hugely important, please.
But Lyndall, then Alistair.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Just wanted to say that you read my mind, because Rachel and I have had a conversation about that in preparation for the SCP next week, but we haven't. There'll be stuff. And can I just say, Chairman, that I really appreciate councillors recording their questions in this manner and we get really good, efficient and up-to-date answers from staff in this process, in this procedural kind of way. So really appreciate that councillors have asked the written questions and given staff the opportunity to answer them succinctly, because that works really well for me. So thanks very much.
Alistair.
Yeah, Lucy, will be very quick. And when you come back with those things on Stead Street, could you give us some idea of the cost of running?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to Chairman and Councillors' reports. So the Blueprint for Resource Management Reform was released on Monday. The Mirror Forum have a meeting with Chris Bishop at lunchtime tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to ask a few questions and get a little more information. It's a work in process that does seem to have a lot of good stuff in it. There will be a few question marks, but I'll leave it there at the moment because we're reasonably up to time this morning. Are there any other council reports this morning? Lyndall.
Thanks, Chairman. Just very quickly, I was very, very pleased that the Chairman and the Deputy Chair were unavailable a couple of Fridays ago, because I got to have a tour of the HMNZS Canterbury while it was in port. There's nothing to be said about people in uniform, I would like to say. But anyway, it was. I was there in the interests of the emergency management kind of capacity for the Canterbury, and so it was really good to be able to see the capacity that they've got in their hold for containers and vehicles and generators and food and people and whatever, and a medical facility and a morgue, sadly, and able to discuss the length of time it will take them to get to the likes of Fiordland and the logistical issues around some of that. So I really, and it was a beautiful Bluff day, so I was really grateful for that opportunity. Thank you. The other thing, I attended the Thriving Southland Breakfast with Chairman and a couple of other councillors, and that was Jeff Grant had some amazing things to say, which I've got notes of, but I didn't bring them with me, sorry. And the other thing I attended was a quick chat with Andy Foster from the he's the spokesman for something. New Zealand First, spokesman for lots of things actually. So it was interesting, and he took lots and lots and lots of notes, didn't he, Councillor? Some of he was particularly interested in transport, and Councillor McPhail was particularly clear about transport discussions. So yes, I've been busy. Thank you.
Thanks, Lyndall. Any further reports? What we will move on. I see that we've got Shami and Bobby at the back, so we might jump forward to 10.2. So welcome.
Yeah, I know mine's completely unstable. I would leave
Welcome, Shami. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair, and good morning to all councillors. I'm really thankful for this opportunity to present a very high-level quick synopsis of what Great South has been up to. This is as of end of December 24, quarter two achievements against our current KPIs. I think there's some feedback. Okay, good. So, as you know, everything that we do is to ensure the communities we serve can live even better lives through sustainable regional development. Our shareholders have endorsed and supported us to work across 4 priorities: regional development leadership, regional promotion, business support and diversification, and the Net Zero Southland piece of work that we do with businesses to support them on their decarbonisation journey. Great South has 40 KPIs for this current financial year, and I'm really pleased to confirm that the team are tracking well in achieving most of them. Before I present the latter 3 sort of priorities, I'm going to hand it over to Bobby to present the work that she's been doing across regional development leadership. So I'll just run this for you, Bobby.
Cool. Okay, so I've only got 4 slides. You'll be pleased to know, maybe 3 even better. But look, I just want to cover off 3 really important things which we've been progressing that are priorities for the region. The first one connects to data. And we're really happy with the progress around DISH. So Data Insights Hub, I think I've talked to you lots about that. You probably hate seeing me coming. But look, this is really just making it easy for people to access information about Southland and being able to segment it across different parts of our sector, so economy, tourism. So look, what we're trying to do is make it even easier by developing reports, and they'll be quarterly. So we've just done the tourism one, which shows some really interesting things, particularly recovery in the international market, quite strong. Domestic, not so strong. The value of events is very important too. You can see our figures are rising there. The next report that's due will be the economic report, which will come out next week. And this is all for the period October to December. We've obviously got a bit of a lag with the data. And of interest with the economic one, we're still doing very well, thinking of everything getting chucked at us. Again, thinking back to that October-December period, we had a wet spring. Our retail stats are up 3% when the rest of the country is actually down 0.3. The reason for that is because the wet spring tractor work happened later. So we can kind of see why then fuel went up at a certain time. The other thing which is of interest is the unemployment statistics have risen quite dramatically, and that makes sense too, thinking of the impact of less sheep being killed and animals at work, less staff, later start dates. So we'll put all that in these quarterly reports, which will be circulated, and we can start to see some very important trends and monitor them. Housing will be the third one that we'll get done in the next month or so, but that again is another key topic. So while that stuff looks at what has been, we're working with Infometrics and the 4 councils at the moment to look at what could be. in terms of developing economic scenarios and models. So this is just important because as the councils and others provide infrastructure, look at workforce, all that sort of stuff, it's going to take a while to gear up. And we're in this lovely position where, TY hasn't closed. It's not just about power, it's the fact that, there is still a lot of business happening. So for these other things to happen, we've got to plan in plenty of time. So when we do that modelling, we'll look at the impact of different things, and things like land use change, carbon forestry, less animals being killed, as well as aquaculture, tourism, etc. We'll look at the impact on workforce, population, housing, export, energy consumption as well. Okay, so that'll be done about mid this year, and we've had a chat to the GMs of the councils about how that can be used in your plans as well, so we start to get consistency across looking forward. Cool, okay, and then I'd just like to acknowledge your staff here, amazing, but we are looking to enter into a partnership with you guys around data and Dish in the next stages. And the idea behind that is that we've all got some data. There's going to be some regional spatial planning happening soon, according to the government, and we just want to make sure we best utilise resources as efficiently as we can. And so it's going to be about how we store, how we share, how we interpret the data, and I think it's awesome to work with your staff, so thank you. And I think the next slide, that might be enough data. Aquaculture. Rightio, so we are on track with the aquaculture pathway to achieving $1 billion. That process will be finished by the middle of the year. We started off, there's 6 stages to it. The first 4 sort of happen concurrently because it's about aligning with other strategies as well as talking to a lot of people in the sector, because there's this connection to wild fisheries as well. So I've had 34 conversations, and I'm not going to joy wondering about how people feel, which is awesome because it's really important. We really understand the challenges and opportunities and what it's going to take to achieve this. I guess that third bullet point is really important because it has to sit within other plans. And that's why, again, I just want to have a call out to Liz, Helen, Rachel, Lucy and the team. The opportunity to line up with your regional coastal plan, it's awesome because it just makes sense to the people looking, wanting to be a part of the agriculture planning to know that then it's lined up. We're also talking to ICC about their asset management plans, thinking of other infrastructure, and we are connected with the government. They 2 weeks ago released their $3 billion plan to get $3 billion out of aquaculture, and Southland could account for about a third of that. I say could because there's a lot to that. Also the spatial planning work, obviously the connection between land and water and everything in between is really important and the rules that will govern that. So we're just trying to connect up a lot of things at the moment and make sure this all makes sense. In terms of the next steps for aquaculture, we'll be splitting it to have a deep dive on some key things, which won't be a surprise, but things like the economic modelling, so what are the triggers to achieving $1 billion or whatever? How could that be staged? Workforce, we're going to have to build up over time. Biosecurity is significant, and I think working particularly with your team again around the haul out and vessel cleaning facilities, that has come up as an absolute critical piece of work. So I just want to acknowledge that you guys had the foresight to actually look at that, and we'll definitely be aligning it with this piece of work. Closely connects into biosecurity. So feedback from the sector is basically saying, look, the rules are really important. Nobody is against the rules. They just want the ability to comply. So having that infrastructure and those facilities are key. So we will keep working with your lot. We're working with Biosecurity New Zealand, MPI and Fisheries. And I think it's just working together. Cool. Okay, and finally, we've got a slide on housing, and I'll just be really quick with this one. But look, housing won't be fixed, as I've said before, with just 1 or 2 developments. It's going to be lots of different things happening. And this is probably a really good slide here in terms of, no, that was good, Charmy. Oh, did you want to be mine read nicely then? Yeah, there's just so much to it. Yeah, but we understand things like impact marine. I've talked about this before. before they had indicated they require 3,400 workers to construct their facility over a 2-year period. You've got the Edendale Cream UHT plant, which is now underway. They require 70 staff. So there's just a whole lot of awesome things happening, but there does need to be a bit of a helicopter view in terms of, well, what can happen when, how do we prepare, how do we make sure we make our businesses and population benefit as much as they can. Not that we can influence when these things happen sometimes, but just knowing does help. And finally, that slide is just sort of like, I'm not telling you to suck eggs, but just how we do look at it in terms of a top-down approach on lots of things that are happening. And in there, you'll see, we've been talking to Invercargill Airport, for an example, about customs and the ability to make the private jets that, they can actually process them, and with the reduction in the customs services, there's been a challenge there. You've obviously got the situation with meatworks and lower stock numbers at the moment, implications of that, changing land use. So where all these things kind of interrelate with each other, and we just like to keep an eye on them, because as the Beyond 25 plan indicated, it was about the enablers which will enable economic development to happen, which aren't as sexy as just building lots of beautiful things, but they're very important. So things like energy, infrastructure, roading, workforce, water. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
A couple of questions, John, Peter, and myself.
Thanks. Great. Always really enjoy you guys coming in. Is there a message to us and the other councils around just getting on with stuff? I do feel that Southland is becoming the province of policy or preparation at the moment. We've seen examples of opportunities lost recently through fast tracking. How do we just get on and get moving together as a province? Because I am worried we spend a lot of money on looking at this stuff, but when it comes to the crunch, we walk away. 100,000 ratepayers we need this to move forward. We can't afford, 100,000 ratepayers can't afford to bring something up at the moment.
Really good question, and I think it is something that the leaders of this of our region need to give serious thought to. We can put opportunities in front and we can advocate on behalf of, but the actual doing does lie in most cases elsewhere. And how do we ensure that that is all connected and collaborated on and delivered in unison, so that the overall benefit is realized? Because what happens sometimes is, certain things may happen, but it's the full potential of it doesn't get realized until the other elements of it fall into place. So I think, John, it really is something that we need to get together, have honest, frank conversations about. There's nothing stopping us from doing anything. It is just us, I suppose. So happy to facilitate it.
Peter?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, really excellent question. I think we should keep thinking about that one, but not keep talking about it. But I'll just ask you about biosecurity in agriculture. Do you see that as the industry itself funding these large biosecurity programs? I'm concerned about the burden falling to the ratepayer of the region, as opposed to, you might have some understanding how it works elsewhere in the world about self-funding their own programs.
Yep, through the chair, really good point. So we just finished stage 2, so we are now deep diving into biosecurity. So at this stage, it was probably the most important issue that came up through 34 conversations, and probably the biggest threat to us having a sustainable agriculture sector. And that come up from a variety, from government through to industry people. So I think we're going to explore that by looking at case studies from other places like Tasmania, Norway, etc., because it all links through to social licence too. But I think one thing to add to that is the marine spatial planning that you guys are considering at the moment. That was very strongly seen as a tool to basically say, right, that is the right place to do that activity in the water. Let's make sure that is understood in the data, and then that comes into your planning. So that then supports biosecurity and the right activity to happen. So again, kudos to your staff for actually thinking ahead and trying to set it up.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Bobby. Just a tiny detail, the Edendale Cream UHT plant, what's its energy source going to be?
Yeah, we're working, I'm not sure, do you know
No,
where they
not yet.
landed on that? I know that that's in discussion at the moment, so we can find out and come back to you.
Thank you, I'd like to.
Yeah. Thanks that you're working with staff so we don't get duplication with Dish. I think that's really good. Great to have a one-stop shop and that we're not duplicating and the same with the working on the coastal plan too. So that's all good. Shami, have you got anything else you want to?
Well, the other 3 areas is nothing really as exciting as what Bobby's doing for this council. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I did want to just highlight the Minecraft piece of work that we've done. And essentially, it's just a good news story for the region. Great South was able to work in collaboration with Tourism New Zealand to develop this extensive sort of world, Minecraft Aotearoa, which is really steeped heavily in our Maori beliefs and our Maori culture. Ora Kakarima have been instrumental in getting the storytelling right for our region. They had a physical portal, which you can see up there, established for the launch of it. There's a movie being launched on the 4th of April. But what this does is it puts us in front of 170, I think it was 170 million Minecraft users across the world. And out of that, 70 million or so have been profiled as likely to come visit. Whether we get all of them or not, probably not, which is a good thing because we can't have all of them in Pipiatahi all at once. However, what it does do is raise our profile as a region as a really diverse and unique place to visit. And through visitation, we all know that comes the work part. Maybe they want to live here. And from that, we come the skilled workforce opportunity. So that's really all I wanted to say. I know there's that we are pressed for time today, so I won't finish the rest of it. We have printed copies of the tourism quarterly report, and I'll leave these here for the council to review. This is the only time that we will print a few copies. It is because it is our very first report, so we're extremely proud of the work that we've done, and it gives us the ability to have really good data to make some key decisions. So that's it, and thank you very much for having us.
Thanks very much for coming in. It's really good to see the work you're doing on behalf of the province. So
thank you.
We see you a bit more regularly with the stakeholders meeting to see how things are going. So thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, we'll move back to 10.1.
Move the resolution, Chair. Recommendation, do you need somebody to move the recommendation that we received?
We received the report. We can
I
do
can do
that.
that if you need somebody.
Aye. Move to 10.1, which is the Chief Executive's report.
Mr. Chair, the Chief Executive's report covers all of the functional groups in the organisation. There's plenty of highlights in them, and I think that there are staff here who can answer any questions that you may have arising from those this morning. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of matters at the front end of this report that I've raised in here. And the first one relates to the bottom paragraph on page 75, where we had in the last 6 weeks, a rather busy period of attending select committees. And we have made, and this council has made a range of submissions directly to government on a number of pieces of proposed legislative change. And we've been in the fortunate position of being chosen to speak to select committees on these matters quite frequently. So most importantly though, I and legal counsel Phil Moore attended the Resource Management Consenting and Other Systems Changes Amendment Bill at the Environment Select Committee, that's otherwise known as RMA2. The government is changing the Resource Management Act and has been doing it in 3 tranches. We also spoke to RMA1, but RMA2 mattered simply because we were the initiating council over matters relating to Section 70 of the Resource Management Act, as it related to Rule 24 in our plan. And that's really critical for us to just pause and consider for a moment. This council identified the threats to the region of 3,200 consents being required as a result of a decision that was taken in the High Court by Fish and Game and Forest and Bird. And we released a statement on that matter on the 8th of October last year, in which we raised those concerns and explained those to the public quite clearly as to why the nature of that decision meant to them that we would be expected to have resource consents to farm in this region with no additional environmental benefit. And therefore, that got quite a lot of media coverage as a result of that announcement in October. And so all of those matters and the fact that this council is the initiating body for that particular matter were clearly made in the public domain. As a result of that, our legal counsel has been working with ourselves and then also with the Ministry of the Environment to be helpful to government to draft changes to Section 70 of the RMA that to enable us to actually have a sensible piece of workable legislation. At the same time, I also was working with the national bodies of Federated Farmers and with Fish and Game, just to keep them abreast of what we were doing. And the reason that I talked to the national bodies is it's their responsibility on matters relating to government legislation. Those matters were also known, however, by the local Federated Farmers section as well. So as a result of that, the government has actually proposed to change Section 70 of the RMA, and we were invited to speak to that matter on the I think what day was it? 13th, I think, Thursday the 13th of this month, and that's what's reflected in the in my report on page 75, and at that time. We put to the select committee some additional advice on the transitional arrangements of Section 70 to make sure that it worked well. That advice has been shared both with the select committee and with the Ministry for the Environment. And in addition to that, at our request, the Environment Court has ordered a stay in the appeals relating to Rule 24. To put it on hold while the government makes those changes. So this council has been the initiating and active body in dealing with this particular matter. Important for us to just remember that those matters are a public record. Our submission to the select committee is available online. These media statements are available online. We made a statement on Thursday the 20th about the stay in court as well. I am concerned that there is conversation that our staff are somehow or other being captured by matters relating to the interests of Fish and Game and Forest and Bird. Our staff are working as the regulators under the RMA to ensure that we actually deliver the rule of law as it is written, both in our regulations and by government statute. And so it's important to understand that Fish and Game do have rights in the Conservation Act in relation to matters to do with rivers. And our staff's job is to ensure that we maintain that their rights accurately and within the scope of the way that the law and our RMA processes are written. So I would say that while there may be commentary that there's disagreement about how that is interpreted by our staff, I'm willing to have those conversations with any external party. However, I want to be really clear, this is not a matter of capture, it's a matter of being a regulator and ensuring that we are upholding the Resource Management Act and the Conservation Act as well as our own regulations. That also leads me on to the matter that actually happened subsequent to these papers going out, which is the government released its report from the expert advisory group advising it on RMA reform on Monday. And with that, the Ministry for the Environment released a very excellent paper identifying the Cabinet responses to the report's advice. This has been much anticipated, and it's good to see it finally out in the public domain. On the first reading, I can say that from the perspective of the chief executives who have been working in this space for some time, that there are some matters here that have got much to commend it, both in terms of simplification, which I have to say that as a regulator, we always welcome simplification, and I'm sure that sector will have its views on that too. The second thing is that it is very clear that there is a desire for one plan for regions, and that also, as CEs, we commend. That would be our desire to see that certainly for Southland. So there'll be a lot more conversation about these matters, I'm sure, as the consideration for response is made by those who've been reviewing it. The regional sector through its body, Te Uru Kahika, and with the chairs and mayors of the unitaries and the regional councils will be considering all this in detail, and so we've only just got this information, but it's good to see that we at least now have some direction of travel in relation to this. The minister responsible for resource management is in Invercargill this week because we have the National Planning Conference here. He will be speaking to that conference tomorrow, and he'll be meeting with the mayors and our chair tomorrow as well. So we have a chance to ask him some questions in relation to this legislation.
Thanks for that, Wilma, and it's also making it clear that we are bound by the law of the day, and it's really a comment. Until that some of it will change through this. There's probably going to be a few areas where there's more community activities, but we are a body that is bound by the law of the day, whether we like it or not. But thanks for the work you put into this, and that's Section 70. We've led that, but it would have affected every region in New Zealand, and they're also pretty grateful for the work you're putting on this. Now, questions. I've got Peter, Morris, Alistair, then John. Peter.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Wilma. Thanks for sending the link through with you and Phil, the Select Committee, and come across as a very competent presentation. So thanks very much for that. I just want to ask, when I saw that, I assumed, probably mistakenly, that there would be governance support. Is that something that you would seek in those technical matters, talking to select committees or not? Or is it on a whole different type of level?
So, look, thank you for your question. Yes, if we were making a general statement of a policy direction, but because we were answering a very technical question, our purpose in attending the Select Committee was to introduce the additional changes to Section 70 and the transitional arrangements that we would like the committee to consider. They had received a very fulsome submission from this council in relation to the direction of travel, and those matters have been well canvassed through the ministry, and so we had been successful in getting our changes into the RMA, and so it wasn't a matter of taking a council policy position. So we were there just simply to talk about the technical detail. Normally, yes, if we were talking more generally, then yes, we would do that.
Thanks very much.
Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you, Wilma, for that explanation. I would recommend, as a result of the presentation we had this morning from Federated Farmers, that we write to them and correct the impression that they have about this council working in, can't remember the exact words, cahoots with Fish and Game to undermine the farming industry, which is completely inaccurate. So I hope other councils would agree with me that that would be a good thing to do. Is that something that we can do, Mr. Chairman?
It needs a response because the information wasn't accurate, so it's their duty to respond. So I'm sure that there's
support for that.
Thank
you. The other question, just in relation to the role of Fish and Game in resource management. Section 7 or Part 7 of the RMA says that in achieving the purpose of this Act, all persons exercising functions and powers under it in relation to managing the use, development and protection of natural and physical resources shall have particular regard to a number of things, and one of those is the protection of the habitat of trout and salmon. So as Wilma correctly says, you cannot disregard that, and that is why Fish and Game have a role in the management of our rivers and wetlands in particular, because the RMA says that habitats of trout and salmon should be protected, and Fish and Game have a statutory role, as Wilma says, under the Conservation Act to do that very thing. So they can't be ignored. Sorry, that was a wee bit of a rant, but I think it's important that everybody knows that. The other thing I'd like to compliment the staff on is the interaction that we're having with, with various people, going to field days and that sort of thing to, sorry, I've lost it now, I did mark it. Here, is that it?
Is it 78? Is it the community engagement council?
Should be on
Page 78.
page 78 under communications, bottom of the page.
Thank you. 78. I'm sorry, I can't find it now. It was in relation to staff being involved with a lot of public functions that were occurring and getting information back in relation to the coastal plan change. 500 interactions or interviews or discussions to do that. So there's a lot of work in that, and being there for a long time, probably. So I'd like to compliment the staff on doing that.
Thanks, Marcus, and a lot of those events are weekend events, and our staff have been doing the extra mile, and I thank them for taking the time to get out there and with us, the public. Alistair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this may be right out of order, but there is an abatement notice, as I understand, from one of our departments to another department. What is actually happening there to either sort it out? It's been there for some long period of time, as I understand it. What is happening there to sort it out and let's get going again?
So can I answer this question? So it is not unusual that councils occasionally abate their own organisation. I do know some regional councils that have actually prosecuted their own organisation. The abatement notice just remains in force, and for the purpose of the abatement notice is to ensure that where the organisation has, for whatever purpose, and inadvertently, in most cases, actually breached one of its own rules or standards, that is there to remind them to do that. And so that is there. That means the organisation still operates. It doesn't prevent it from operating. It just is in relation to its works program to ensure that it meets its own rules.
Supplementary, so does that get lifted, taken away?
I'm not sure about that actually. I think the abatement notice might have a definitive time period. I'm looking at Donna. She can say what the time period is on it.
Good morning, through you, Chair. So yes, an abatement notice can be cancelled once it's been fully adhered to. And so the abatement notice, there will be timeframes for work to be done. There is the ability, however, for the recipient of the abatement notice to apply for extensions. For instances, for example, if they needed contractors, they weren't available within those timeframes, the council considers those on their merit.
So you're working on setting a timeframe up to lift it, because in the perception of the people out there get it, they're not happy. They can't see the reason, although it's correct, I understand that, but the perception's not good.
So when abatement notices are issued, they are explained to the recipient at the time, but we would encourage anyone who doesn't understand the purpose of that notice to let us know, so we can make sure that we can read it right.
I've seen it in the
At the end of the day, we've got rules, we've got to obey them as well.
I appreciate that.
Tom,
Yes, thank you. So around the rule 70, obviously, it's not an ideal situation. And I just want something clarified, I guess, take all political aspects away, strip it back. If we had certified farm plans in place, would that have been an opportunity to get around the issue with rule 70?
No, so this is not that is not the problem. It's rule 24 in our plan and section 70 of the RMA. But the issue there is a matter of timeframes and an inability to even meet a standard that is in the National Policy Statement and in the RMA. And there was a conflict between those two matters. It has nothing to do with farm.
Would not have been tied up within a farm plan though.
No, it is a point of the law in which there is a circular unanswerable problem between two aspects of the plan, the law, the National Policy Statement, and another section of the RMA. So it was a legal matter that needed to be tidied, hence the recourse to legislation.
any other questions?
Circular legal law.
So, okay, not supplementary.
Phil,
Thank you, Chair Wilmotby. I was pleased to read about the ongoing progress and success with the Murihuku the Flow project, and I think it was positive that there were reports in there that there was one of the decision-making workshops was helping to establish credible, relevant and legitimate decision-making processes for a catchment-based approach. And I'm just wondering if you think there might be an opportunity to perhaps leverage those learnings for the benefits of our forward thinking around how we implement governance arrangements across all of our reporting catchments, because I know that in Waikawa they've now got an integrated catchment management plan, but perhaps they're missing the governance piece to fit over the top of that for the future. And it just seems to me there's an opportunity. I was wondering if we're going to have some capacity in the next few months to maybe bring these learnings together and consider how they might be leveraged positively for the future.
I would like to be able to say yes without actually consulting with my general manager. Integrated catchment management is what work program capacity looks like at the moment, but you may want to comment.
I lost you there a little bit, Councillor.
I'm really interested in perhaps us taking a proactive approach to understanding what the integrated catchment management governance arrangements might be, knowing that they'll likely be different for each catchment due to the stakeholders moving forward, and maybe to slow the flow experience might be leveraged to help inform that.
So through you, Chair, so the broader kind of how we change and morph our governance arrangements is very much live in everybody's minds at the moment, especially the catchment liaison chairs. So we did have a conversation with them the week before last, and they're due to come in next week as well. I would say that the work programme more generally has got there needs to be governance arrangements for the point from earlier. Possible changes you might want to make post-election in terms of committees of the whole for regional services. A lot of the conversation we've been hearing today and the narrative around concerns about things being slowed down, the regional services papers are very explicit about how much work is happening and how much is being delivered on the ground. And I think that there's some of that will be in the papers that not everybody will see, but I think we need very much to have shine brighter light on the work that we're happening, and then what governance arrangements need to move into in the future needs to be discussed with this council to set us up for the next council.
thank you. Thanks, Lucy. Jeremy.
Yeah, just in regards to Morris sort of brought it up, legislation up, I asked through I was thinking that for someone who may be interested in, we were talking about fish and game, and we've got our legal team here, that to walk through the legislation exactly how we are meant to work with the stakeholders and our partners in regards to river management, what we are to do, what maybe we don't have to do those. So it's very clear, and also gives examples how we've done, so that it could clarify a bit of the situation in regards to the speaker today. So, and I thought some might not be interested, but I'd be certainly interested. In regards, obviously the RMA may change, but it won't change in a hurry. This will be
Thank you for raising that. This is a very active conversation internally, and we are working through exactly those matters. And I think that it's critical that, because we do understand what the conversation externally has been on this matter, and it's important that we understand what our obligations are under the law, and that also organisations don't fall into a habit of the way that they actually apply those as being, in fact, what our obligations are, just because that's been the way we've done things before. So it's always good to challenge those questions. And so with that in mind, as managers, we have actually started that piece of work and have been working through that. Very keen to talk to council about that off the back end of it, because I think there's an important way in which the organisation does apply its thinking to legislation, and we've had to challenge that ourselves in a number of other places over the past few years that I've been here, and it's a good thing for us to do. So we're doing that right now on this matter, and so I do hear the frustration from Fish and Game, from Federated Farmers on that matter this morning, but also it will be improper for us to be discussing that with them ahead of actually working through the matters internally and then discussing it with you. One of the things that the Chair has alluded to, however, is the fact that we are very clear about what the obligations are in relation to the removal of gravel under structures. And that has been a matter of speculation that it has been our responsibility. That is in fact the responsibility of the structure owners. And there's quite clear guidance around that, and the Chair is looking to ensure in writing to the territorial authorities and to other structure owners that they are clear about their obligations in that regard too.
Peter, Paul and Eric.
Just a couple of questions. Just on the last discussion, I'll just pick up on that. We were at a workshop, some of the councillors yesterday with the planning conference, and we're lucky to have some reasonably senior MFE people in there talking about the new RMA. There was not much clarity around environment and regional issues within that discussion. Most of it was dominated by infrastructure and urban planning, I would say, and that's fair enough. Would you be able to, as soon as possible, to get some of those officials in the room with us here at some stage? We were a bit concerned about a really tight time frame leading up into the national elections in 2026. So sort of felt as though that group probably had the tiger by the tail a wee bit, and we need to be aware of all that sort of stuff. So it's just a request. The other thing I'd just like to say, Wilma, is thank you very much for putting that item in there about the defects. And the table itself that lists the defects, are they the open defects themselves, or are they the ones that have been corrected so far?
Good question. And to answer the first question while Leslie's coming to the table, the answer is yes. We've already discussed how we would get some clarity from the Ministry of the Environment about what the process around the Environment Act aspect of the RMA changes will unfold.
There was a big talking point around the idea around private property rights and how that could filter through everything too. So thanks very much for that.
Lucy.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the table itself refers to how many we've addressed thus far this year, and the final progress update will be presented once we've done all the reference. So the management approaches banks, we check what we see, it all gets recorded on our GIS system, and then the guys rate them, and then they send letters out to landowners to make sure everybody understands what their responsibilities are, and then go back and check and see if people have taken action. So that's current state. There'll be more information to come in terms of the actual final progress update. I've got more details on some of the other pieces, but as you were specifically talking.
I just want to thank very much that that's in there and it's ongoing. I would assume it will be ongoing.
Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. Thank you for the great report, Wilma. I'm looking at page 78 with regards to community and engagement. I see, you know, and then move to the top of page 79 with regards to media requests. Are we collating what information the media are requesting from us? And maybe that highlights the topics that the community are asking the media to ask us for. You know, there's 17 media inquiries with the court decision relating to wetland loss and the harbour master's role, attracting the most interest. Other topics including reorganisation, peace plants, toxicology, TB, and fly tipping. So, to me, some of those are definitely some of the issues that I have in our community. And I was just wondering if we're collating those to make sure that we send the right message out to our community and not the media outlets sending the message they want out to our community.
Through you, Chair. Yeah, we do collate all the stuff that we get in. We keep a tight media log of what comes in and how we respond. I can pull out some very high level themes for you if that would be helpful.
No. So my question is, instead of relying on the media services to contact us relating to stories that they want to share with our community, whether we collate them and say, right, these are topics that our community are looking at, and we need to share that information out ourselves in a clear and concise way, because there are concerns about increased possum activity, TB, all that sort of stuff. So it would be good to utilise that collation to sort of drive a little bit more of our information to the community.
Yeah, through you, Chair. We've currently undergone part of the workshop you attended a couple of days ago is around revamping our communications. Part of that is a digital strategy where we're putting a lot of stuff out there. You'll see a big ramp up in what we're putting online, both on the website, but on the social media also, which is basically a signpost to the website. So we've just published this article on what we're updating, what we're doing with possum control, etc. as an example. And social media is really just a pointer to point people to that, just with a little taster. So yes, there is work going on in that area, and yes, we'll take that on.
Cool. Thank you.
Eric.
This is a subset of the discussion that we've been having, and I don't want to deal with it now. But one of the presenters this morning raised issues I consider to approach issues of natural justice, and can we sometime today put on the agenda how we respond to that?
Yes, we can. I think that's a bit of a subset to what Morris was raising.
I'll move the report be received.
Thank you, Eric. Seconded by Peter. All in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Look, I'm going to make a slight change to the agenda. We've still got a bit of reason about to go in open, but I think we'll start. I'm going to move us into public excluded. We'll start that agenda. We'll break for a cup of tea, but it'll allow the other staff to perhaps be able to go away and come back after lunch. We'll finish that part of the agenda. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to support the opportunity.
Okay, so we need to stop here.
One thing just before we go into excluded that I didn't do during my report was to actually introduce Patrick Ng to you, who is here ahead of his beginning work with us. He starts work with us as the new General Manager Corporate Services. But Patrick is here doing a meet and discussion about his role with Bethia as she's departing in April. So this will be her last council meeting. And Patrick starts work with us, I think the 12th of May, is that correct? Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome, Patrick, and also if we don't get another chance to farewell you, you've done a great job in the interim, and probably, your husband's probably keen for you to return to Wellington on a more permanent basis, but it's good to see the team that Wilma's put in place, and we'll get to know the factory a little bit more going forward. I've seen a little bit of his past history, and I think he's a pretty impressive capture and will be actually make a big difference to this organisation. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Patrick.
Right, the grounds for going into public excluded are set out in the resolution that is at the end of the open agenda, and it will also include to allow Philip Moore and Ian Evans to remain behind in the public excluded section of the meeting because of the to deal with items 12.4.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. I'll put the motion, we move the public excluded, all in favour will say aye.
Aye.
No, it's a different matter with that, but I do need to know, are we breaking for a cup of tea? Or are
We-
just public excluded for this item?
With the cup of tea, or we might just do the minutes, we'll do the minutes.
Do the minutes first?
Just a minute, I haven't finished the live stream.
Oh,
yet.
sorry.
Sorry. I'm trying to find the stop button.
Okay,
We're not seated over in the last one. Can I just check actually, Jan, whether there is a necessity for us to remain on Zoom